The chandelier crystals caught the light like captured stars, scattering rainbow fragments across the Grand Bellamy ballroom. I stood near the service entrance, clipboard pressed against my chest, watching 300 of New York's most powerful people pretend they cared about underprivileged youth while really just networking and showing off their wealth. 5 years. I'd been coordinating Dominic Ferrante's annual charity galas for 5 years, and not once had he looked at me as anything more than the woman who made sure his events ran flawlessly. Miss Chen, the champagne fountain on the east side needs refilling. Antonio, one of the catering staff, appeared at my elbow, slightly panicked. Already handled. I checked my tablet, confirming the timing. New bottles are being brought up now. Tell Marco to position himself near table 12. Senator Richardson's wife always gets handsy after her 3rd glass, and we don't need another incident. Antonio nodded gratefully and disappeared into the crowd. I returned my attention to the master checklist, systematically working through each item. Orchestra, on schedule. Auction items, properly displayed. Security, positioned correctly. Dominic's welcome speech, loaded on the teleprompter with the revised version he'd sent at 11 last night, because of course he had. Everything was perfect. Everything was always perfect when I ran his events. That's what I did. I made Dominic Ferrante's life run smoothly from the shadows, ensuring his legitimate business empire appeared exactly as polished and respectable as he needed it to be. The Ferrante Foundation's annual gala was the crown jewel of that carefully constructed image, raising millions for youth programs while letting New York's elite rub shoulders with one of the city's most powerful men. What they didn't know, what most of them suspected but would never acknowledge, was that Dominic's fortune came from considerably less legitimate sources. Real estate development funded by money that had been laundered so many times it was practically pristine. Shipping contracts that involved cargo manifests with creative interpretations. Construction projects that somehow never faced union disputes or permit delays. I'd figured it out within 6 months of starting as his event coordinator. The patterns were there if you knew where to look, and I'd always been good at seeing what others missed. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. The strange thing was, it didn't bother me the way it probably should have. Dominic Ferrante was dangerous, yes, but he was also surprisingly principled within his own moral framework. The youth programs his foundation funded were genuine. The scholarships were real. The community centers actually helped people. He was a complicated man, running a complicated empire, and I'd somehow become essential to maintaining the legitimate facade that protected it all. Not that he noticed. In 5 years, Dominic had spoken directly to me maybe a dozen times. Always brief, always professional. The venue looks excellent, Miss Chen. Well done with the seating arrangements. Your attention to detail is appreciated. Appreciated. Like I was a particularly efficient piece of office equipment. I'd stopped minding after the first year. This was a job, an incredibly well-paying job that had let me pay off my student loans and afford a decent apartment in Brooklyn. I didn't need my boss to see me as a person. I needed him to value my work, which he clearly did, given the bonuses and the fact that I was the only event coordinator he'd kept for more than 18 months. Elena, Caroline Wu materialized beside me, her emerald dress shimmering as she moved. She worked in Dominic's real estate division, and we'd become friends over shared late nights preparing for company events. You're not seriously going to spend the entire gala hiding back here with your clipboard, are you? I'm not hiding. I'm coordinating. You're hiding. She plucked the clipboard from my hands. Everything's running perfectly because you're a control freak who planned every detail 6 ways from Sunday. The gala doesn't need you hovering. Come have champagne. Mingle. Remember what it's like to be a human person instead of an event planning robot. Caroline. Elena Chen, you are wearing a gorgeous dress that cost you 3 months of saving. Your hair actually looks amazing for once. And you're going to waste it standing in the shadows? She handed my clipboard to a passing assistant. That's an order. Go be visible for once in your life. I looked down at the dress I'd splurged on. Deep sapphire blue, fitted bodice, flowing skirt that moved like water. I'd told myself it was an investment, something elegant I could wear to future events. But the truth was, some small, foolish part of me had wondered if maybe, just once, Dominic might actually notice me. Stupid. The man had supermodels and socialites throwing themselves at him constantly. Why would he notice his event coordinator, even in a designer dress? Fine. I smoothed my hands over the silk. 1 glass of champagne. Then I'm checking on the kitchen. Progress. Caroline linked her arm through mine, steering me toward the main ballroom. Who knows? Maybe you'll even meet someone. Alessandro Marchesi is here. He's been asking about you. My stomach sank. Please tell me you didn't. I may have mentioned you were single and brilliant, and totally his type. She grinned, unrepentant. He's gorgeous, Elena. Old money, charming, and he actually works for a living instead of just living off his trust fund. You could do worse. I could also do without the complications of dating someone who moved in Dominic's circles. But Caroline meant well. She'd been trying to set me up for years, never understanding that I preferred my life uncomplicated and my heart safely uninvolved. The ballroom was stunning, exactly as I'd designed it. White roses and gold candlelight, crystal everything, the orchestra playing something classical and elegant, guests clustered in groups, the women glittering with jewels, the men in perfectly tailored tuxedos. And there, near the center of it all, was Dominic Ferrante. He stood with a group of major donors, his presence commanding attention without effort. 36 years old, 6'3", built like someone who still trained like the boxer he'd been in his youth. Dark hair styled perfectly, sharp features that could have been carved from marble, dark eyes that missed nothing. He wore a tuxedo like he'd been born to it, every line perfect, every detail exact. But it was the way he carried himself that really set him apart, the absolute confidence of a man who knew he owned every room he entered and everyone in it. I'd seen him charm senators and intimidate rivals. I'd watched him close business deals with a handshake and end partnerships with a single cold look. I'd spent 5 years studying him from a distance, learning his patterns, anticipating his needs, making myself indispensable to his legitimate operations. And in all that time, he'd never once looked at me the way he was looking at me right now. His gaze locked onto mine across the ballroom, and something shifted in his expression. The polite smile he'd been wearing for the donors vanished, replaced by something intense and unreadable. His eyes traveled slowly from my face down to my dress and back up, taking in every detail with an attention I'd never experienced from him before. My breath caught. The champagne glass in my hand suddenly felt too heavy. "See?" Caroline whispered. "I told you that dress was amazing." Even Dominic Ferrante noticed. But this didn't feel like simple notice. This felt like I'd somehow become visible after 5 years of existing as background noise in his perfectly orchestrated life. And from the way his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, from the way his hand clenched briefly at his side before he consciously relaxed it, he wasn't entirely pleased about it. "Elena," a warm male voice interrupted my spiraling thoughts. Alessandro Marchesi appeared at my side, devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo, his smile genuine and interested. "Caroline said I might find you here. You look absolutely stunning." I forced myself to look away from Dominic, to focus on Alessandro. "Thank you. You're too kind." "Not kind. Honest." He offered his arm. "Would you allow me to buy you a drink?" I know it's an open bar, but the gesture stands. I should say no. Should return to my coordination duties, check on the kitchen, verify the auction timeline. But Caroline was giving me encouraging looks, and Alessandro seemed genuinely nice. And maybe it was time I stopped being invisible by choice. "I'd like that," I heard myself say. Alessandro's smile widened. He led me toward the bar, his hand light and respectful at the small of my back. We talked easily. He was charming without being pushy, interested without being invasive. He made me laugh with a story about a disastrous business trip to Milan. I was actually enjoying myself, actually feeling like a person, instead of a function, when I felt it. The weight of attention, heavy and intense, like pressure against my skin. I glanced toward where Dominic had been standing with the donors. He was still there, but he wasn't engaging with them anymore. He was watching me, watching Alessandro's hand on my back, watching the way I smiled at something Alessandro said. And the expression on Dominic Ferrante's face was nothing I'd ever seen before. Cold fury mixed with something raw and possessive. His dark eyes had gone absolutely black, his jaw tight enough that I could see the muscle jumping beneath his skin. One of his hands gripped his champagne glass so hard I thought the crystal might shatter. "Elena?" Alessandro's voice pulled my attention back. "Are you all right?" Yes. Sorry. I thought I saw." I trailed off, not sure how to explain the inexplicable. "Your boss looks like he wants to murder me," Alessandro said, his tone light, but his eyes serious as he followed my gaze. Should I be concerned? I looked back at Dominic. He'd turned away now, back to his donors, but his shoulders were rigid with tension. "No, he's just particular about his events, probably making sure everything's running smoothly." But that wasn't it. That wasn't it at all. Dominic Ferrante didn't care who I talked to, Didn't care who I smiled at or danced with or went home with. He'd never cared because he'd never seen me as anything beyond my function. Except now he was looking at me like I'd betrayed something fundamental, and I had no idea what or why. I should check on the catering, I said abruptly. Thank you for the drink, Alessandro. It was lovely talking with you. Wait, did I say something wrong? No, you were perfect. I need to work. I'm sorry. I fled before he could respond, winding through the crowd toward the service entrance. My heart was hammering, my skin flushed, my thoughts chaotic. What had just happened? Why had Dominic looked at me like that? I pushed through the service door into the quiet corridor beyond, pressing my back against the wall and trying to steady my breathing. This was ridiculous. I was reading into things, seeing patterns that didn't exist. Dominic didn't care about my personal life. He didn't care about me beyond my professional capabilities. Miss Chen. I jumped at the sound of his voice, low and dangerous in the empty hallway. Dominic stood 10 feet away, having followed me through the service door without my noticing. In the dim corridor lighting, he looked even more imposing than usual, all sharp angles and barely contained intensity. Mr. Ferrante. I straightened, trying to summon professional composure. Is there a problem with the event? I was just going to check on... Who is he? The question was quiet, precisely enunciated, and absolutely loaded with something I couldn't identify. I'm sorry? Alessandro Marchesi. Dominic moved closer, each step measured and deliberate. How long have you known him? My mind reeled. We just met tonight. Caroline introduced us. Why? Just met. He repeated the words like they were foreign. And you let him touch you. Heat flooded my face, equal parts embarrassment and indignation. He had his hand on my back while we walked to the bar. That's hardly... You were smiling at him. Dominic stopped 3 feet away, close enough that I could smell his cologne, cedar, and something darker. You never smile like that. I smile. Not at work. Not at me. His eyes searched my face with uncomfortable intensity. 5 years, Miss Chen. 5 years where you've been nothing but professional. Efficient. Perfect. And suddenly tonight, you appear in that dress, looking like... He cut himself off, his jaw clenching. Looking like what? The words escaped before I could stop them. His gaze dropped to my dress again, and something dangerous flickered in his expression, like something I shouldn't be noticing, like someone I have no right to want. The confession hung between us, impossible and terrifying and thrilling all at once. Mr. Ferrante, don't. The word cracked like a whip. Don't call me that right now, not when you've been letting other men. He stopped himself again, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair, destroying it. The gesture was so unlike him, so raw, that it stole my breath. I don't understand, I said quietly. You've never, in 5 years, you've barely spoken to me beyond work. Why do you care who I talk to? Because I've spent 5 years trying not to notice you. The admission came roughly, like it was pulled from somewhere deep. Trying not to think about how you anticipate my needs before I voice them. How you make my chaotic life run smoothly. How you're the only person in my organization I trust without question. His eyes met mine, blazing with barely restrained emotion. And tonight, you walked into my gala looking like a goddess, and every man in that ballroom saw what I've been deliberately ignoring. Saw you as a woman instead of a function, and I wanted to destroy every single one of them for it. My heart was thundering so loud I could barely hear my own thoughts over it. You can't just... I know. He stepped back, putting distance between us, his control slamming back into place. I know it's inappropriate. I know I have no right. You work for me. You've given me no indication of interest beyond professional respect. I'm your employer, and this crosses every boundary that should exist between us. Then why are you telling me? My voice came out smaller than intended. Because watching you with him, watching you smile like that, was killing me. The raw honesty in his voice made my knees weak. And I needed you to know that if you pursue this thing with Marchesi, if you let him take you to dinner and make you laugh and touch you the way I've been imagining for 5 years. He stopped, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. I'll handle it. I'll be professional. But I needed you to know that it will cost me everything I have to watch it happen. The corridor felt too small, the air too thin. Dominic Ferrante, the man who commanded an empire with ruthless efficiency, who never showed vulnerability, who I'd convinced myself barely knew I existed, was standing before me, confessing feelings that mirrored the ones I'd been suppressing for longer than I wanted to admit. I'm not interested in Alessandro, I heard myself say. Something fierce and possessive flashed across his face. Why not? Because he's not you. The words hung between us for 3 heartbeats. Then Dominic closed the distance between us in 2 strides, backing me against the wall. His hands braced on either side of my head, caging me in. Not touching, but close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. Say that again, he demanded, his voice dropping to gravel. I met his eyes, seeing my own want reflected there, magnified. He's not you. None of them are. I've spent 5 years trying to be professional, trying to ignore how I feel when you walk into a room, trying not to care that you never noticed me. And then tonight, you looked at me like you're mine. The words came out possessive and absolute. Like every man touching you is a threat I need to eliminate. Like 5 years of carefully maintained distance just shattered because you wore that dress and smiled at someone else. I'm not yours, I said, but the protest was weak, undermined by the way my breathing had gone shallow, by the way I was leaning into him despite the fact that he still wasn't touching me. Not yet. His thumb traced my jawline, the first real touch, and electricity shot through me. But you could be. If you wanted. If you're brave enough to cross this line with me. This is insane, I whispered. You're my boss. I work for you. This could destroy everything. I know. He leaned in, his lips hovering near my ear. I've been listing all the reasons this is a terrible idea for 5 years. Every rational argument against it. But tonight, watching you with him, I realized something. What? That I'd rather have you and deal with the complications than spend another 5 years pretending I don't want you. He pulled back enough to meet my eyes. So I'm asking, Elena, not as your employer, but as a man who's wanted you for longer than he's willing to admit, is there any possibility you might want me too? The vulnerability in the question undid me. This wasn't Dominic Ferrante, the powerful businessman, or the dangerous man with connections that didn't bear scrutiny. This was just a man, asking if his feelings might be returned. Yes, I breathed. God help me, yes. His eyes darkened with heat, and something that looked like relief. Then we're doing this. Whatever it takes, whatever complications come. The service door burst open. Marco, the head of security, appeared, his expression urgent. Mr. Ferrante, we have a situation. The Castellano family just arrived. They weren't on the guest list. Dominic's entire demeanor shifted instantly, the vulnerability vanishing behind cold calculation. But his hand found mine, lacing our fingers together in a gesture that was both possessive and reassuring. How many? 4. Vincent Castellano himself, plus his son and 2 soldiers. They're demanding to speak with you. Says it's about territory disputes in Red Hook. Dominic's jaw tightened. The Castellanos ran the docks, and there'd been ongoing tension about shipping routes and warehouse access. This was business, the dangerous kind that I usually only glimpsed from the edges. Tell them I'll meet them in the private room in 5 minutes. He turned to me, his expression serious. Elena, go back to the gala. Stay visible. Stay near Caroline or Alessandro. Don't leave the main ballroom. Dominic, please. The word came quietly, edged with something that might have been fear. The Castellanos play rough. If they think you matter to me. He didn't finish the sentence, but I understood. I'd just become a vulnerability, a potential target. Be careful, I said instead of arguing. Something softened in his expression. He raised my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles that sent heat through my entire body. Always am. Now go. I'll find you when this is handled. I left reluctantly, returning to the ballroom where the gala continued in oblivious elegance. But everything had changed. The world had shifted on its axis, and I wasn't sure how to find my balance in it. Dominic Ferrante wanted me, and I wanted him back. And that simple truth was about to make both our lives infinitely more complicated. I found Caroline near the auction display, her expression shifting from curious to concerned the moment she saw my face. Elena, what happened? You look like you've seen a ghost. Not a ghost. I grabbed a champagne flute from a passing waiter, needing something to do with my shaking hands. Just, everything got complicated. Complicated how? She pulled me toward a quieter corner, away from the clusters of guests. Did Alessandro say something inappropriate? Because I swear, he seemed like such a gentleman. It's not Alessandro. I took a sip of champagne, barely tasting it. It's Dominic. Her eyes widened. Dominic Ferrante? What did he do? How did I even explain what had just happened in that hallway? He followed me out of the ballroom. Asked me about Alessandro. And then I trailed off, my cheeks flushing. Oh my God. Caroline's mouth dropped open. He's jealous. Dominic Ferrante is jealous because you were talking to another man. It's more than that, he said. I lowered my voice even further. He said he's wanted me for 5 years. That watching me with Alessandro was killing him. Caroline stared at me for a long moment, then grabbed my champagne and downed it herself. I need that more than you do. Elena Chen, you've been working for possibly the most eligible and dangerous bachelor in New York for 5 years, and he's been secretly pining for you? I don't think Dominic Ferrante pines. The man followed you out of his own gala and confessed his feelings. That's pining. She grabbed my shoulders. What did you say? Please tell me you didn't give him some professional speech about boundaries. I told him I wanted him too. Yes! Caroline's excited shout earned us several curious glances. She lowered her voice. Sorry, but yes. Finally. Do you have any idea how much sexual tension has been radiating off you two at company events? It's been painful to watch. I blinked. What? We barely interact. Exactly. You barely interact because you're both working so hard to ignore each other. Elena, the man watches you when he thinks no one's looking. He positions himself to have a clear line of sight to wherever you are. And you track his movements like it's a sixth sense. It's been obvious to everyone except apparently you two. Before I could process this revelation, I caught sight of Dominic emerging from the private meeting room. He looked composed, his expression neutral, but I'd spent 5 years learning to read his subtle tells. The tension in his shoulders, the slight tightness around his eyes. The meeting with the Castellanos hadn't gone well. He scanned the ballroom, his gaze finding mine immediately. Even across the crowded space, I felt the connection like a physical pull. His eyes held mine for 3 heartbeats, and I saw the question there. Are you okay? I nodded slightly. His shoulders relaxed infinitesimally. Then Vincent Castellano emerged behind him. A silver-haired man in his 60s with the kind of face that had seen too much violence to ever look truly civilized. His son Marco followed, younger, hungrier, his eyes scanning the crowd with predatory interest. Those eyes landed on me. I watched Marco lean toward his father, murmuring something while looking directly at me. Vincent's gaze followed, and something calculating entered his expression. No. Dominic had warned me about this. Had told me to stay visible but unnoticed, to blend into the crowd. Instead, I'd been standing here having an animated conversation with Caroline, probably looking flushed and obvious in this sapphire dress that suddenly felt like a spotlight. Elena, Caroline's hand tightened on my arm. Who are those men with Dominic? The Castellano family. They run the shipping operations out of Red Hook. I forced myself to look away, to pretend I hadn't noticed their attention. We should mingle, make ourselves less interesting, but it was too late. Vincent Castellano was already moving through the crowd toward us, his son flanking him, Dominic following with barely concealed tension radiating from every line of his body. Ladies, Vincent's smile was all charm and zero warmth. What a lovely gala. You must be responsible for this beautiful event. Up close, he was even more intimidating. His suit was expensive but not ostentatious, his presence commanding in a way that suggested he was used to people stepping aside when he walked through a room. I coordinate, Mr. Ferrante's foundation events, yes. I kept my voice professional, neutral. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Miss Chen is the best in the business, Dominic said, his voice carrying an edge I'd never heard before. She makes magic happen behind the scenes. Behind the scenes. Vincent's eyes traveled over my dress with uncomfortable thoroughness. Shame to keep such a beautiful woman hidden away. You should be center stage, my dear. I prefer working behind the scenes, Mr. Castellano. It's where I'm most effective. Modest, too. His smile widened. Dominic, you didn't mention you had such a gem on your staff. My son Marco here was just saying we need someone with organizational skills for our annual Marina charity event. Perhaps Miss Chen might be available for consultation. Every word was a test, a probe to see how Dominic would react, to gauge exactly how much I mattered. Miss Chen's schedule is fully committed to Ferrante Foundation events, Dominic said smoothly. I'm afraid she won't have availability for outside projects. Pity. Vincent's gaze moved between us, reading things I wished weren't visible. Well, if circumstances change, the offer stands. It was lovely meeting you, Miss Chen. Caroline. He nodded to each of us, then moved away, his son following with one last lingering look that made my skin crawl. The moment they were out of earshot, Caroline exhaled shakily. That was terrifying. Who talks like that? Like every word is a threat wrapped in compliments? People in Dominic's world. I watched Vincent rejoin his entourage near the exit. They left shortly after, but the damage was done. They knew I existed now. Knew Dominic had been protective of me. And in their world, that made me leverage. Dominic appeared at my elbow, his hand settling at the small of my back with possessive certainty. To anyone watching, it might have looked casual, but I felt the tension in his touch, the barely restrained need to pull me closer, somewhere safer. "Caroline, would you excuse us?" His tone made it clear it wasn't a request. "Of course, Mr. Ferrante." She gave me a meaningful look before disappearing into the crowd. Dominic guided me toward the terrace doors, his hand never leaving my back. We stepped outside into the cool November air, the sounds of the gala muffled behind us. "That was a problem," he said quietly, moving to stand at the railing overlooking the city. "Vincent doesn't do social calls. He came here to send a message, and now he's sent a different one. Because he saw you with me. Because he saw me protect you. Claim you." Dominic's jaw tightened. In our world, that's as good as painting a target on your back. Fear clawed at my throat, but I pushed it down. What kind of message did he come to send? That the Red Hook territory disputes aren't going to be settled quietly. That he's willing to escalate. He turned to face me fully. And now he knows that I have someone who matters to me. Someone he could use as pressure. So what do we do? We? His eyes searched mine. "Elena, the smart thing would be for you to walk away right now. Pretend tonight never happened. Go back to being my invisible event coordinator who I definitely don't have feelings for. Is that what you want? What I want and what's safe for you are two very different things." His hand came up to cup my face, thumb stroking my cheekbone with devastating gentleness. "You have no idea what you'd be signing up for. The danger, the violence, the constant threat. Then tell me." I covered his hand with mine. "Stop trying to protect me by keeping me in the dark. If I'm already a target, I deserve to know what I'm facing." He studied my face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "The Ferrante family has controlled Manhattan's West Side shipping operations for 3 generations. Legitimate businesses built on a foundation that's less legitimate. The Castellanos want expansion into territories my father secured decades ago. They've been pushing boundaries, testing our response. And now they'll push harder because they think I'm your weakness. You are my weakness." The admission came quietly. "I've spent my entire adult life making sure I didn't have any. But you, Elena, if they took you, if they hurt you to get to me, I would burn their entire organization to the ground and salt the earth where it stood." The ferocity in his voice should have frightened me. Instead, it sent heat through my entire body. "So we make sure they don't get that chance," I said firmly. "What do I need to do? Additional security? Change my routines? I can move to a safer..." "You'll move into my penthouse." I blinked. "What?" "Tonight, after the gala, you'll pack a bag and move into the penthouse where I have 24-hour security, bulletproof windows, and a team of people whose only job is making sure nothing happens to anyone I care about." "Dominic, that's a huge step. We just admitted we have feelings for each other 5 minutes ago, which is exactly why the Castellanos are interested in you." He stepped closer, his intensity overwhelming. "Elena, I'm not asking you to move in with me as my girlfriend. I'm telling you that your safety requires protection. I can only provide in a controlled environment. You can have your own suite, your own space, but you will be somewhere I know you're safe." The command in his voice was absolute, the same tone he used when closing business deals that weren't actually negotiations. But beneath it, I heard fear, real fear that something might happen to me because of his feelings. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. "Okay," I said quietly. His eyes widened slightly. "Okay? You're right. If I'm a target now, I need protection. And I trust you to provide it." I held his gaze steadily. "But Dominic, this goes both ways. You don't get to shut me out or make all the decisions. If we're doing this, we're partners. That means you tell me what's happening, you let me help where I can, and you stop trying to handle everything alone." Something that might have been pride flickered across his face. "You're negotiating terms with me. I learned from the best." I allowed myself a small smile. "So, do we have an agreement?" He pulled me against him then, one arm wrapping around my waist, his other hand tangling in my hair. We have an agreement. But Elena, I know. I looked up at him, seeing the vulnerability beneath his controlled exterior. This is dangerous. I might get hurt. There are no guarantees. I rose on my toes, bringing my lips close to his. I'm doing it anyway. He kissed me then. Not gentle, not tentative, but with 5 years of suppressed want compressed into a single devastating moment. His mouth claimed mine with possessive intensity, one hand fisting in my hair, the other pressing against my lower back, holding me against him like he was afraid I might disappear. I kissed him back with equal hunger, my hands gripping his tuxedo jacket, feeling the solid muscle beneath the expensive fabric. He tasted like whiskey and something darker, more complex. The kiss deepened, his tongue sliding against mine, and I heard myself make a sound that should have been embarrassing but just seemed to inflame him further. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. We should go back inside, he murmured, though he made no move to release me. Before I forget, we're at a public event and do something that would scandalize your carefully planned gala. My gala is perfect. It can survive without me for a few more minutes. I traced the line of his jaw, feeling the barely contained tension there. But yes, we should go back before people notice. Too late. He gestured toward the terrace doors, where I could see several guests glancing our way with poorly concealed curiosity. By tomorrow morning, half of New York society will know that Dominic Ferrante was seen kissing his event coordinator at his own charity gala. Is that a problem? For your reputation? Possibly. For mine? His smile was sharp. Let them talk. Let them know you're mine. It might actually provide some protection. People will be less likely to move against you if they think harming you would trigger my direct retaliation. The casual way he discussed retaliation should have sent me running. Instead, I found myself oddly reassured. This was Dominic's world, brutal and complicated and governed by rules I was only beginning to understand. But he navigated it with absolute competence, and he was offering to extend that protection to me. We returned to the ballroom together, his hand possessively at my back. The gala continued seamlessly, orchestra playing, champagne flowing, auction bids climbing into the hundreds of thousands. Everything I'd planned was executing perfectly, but I felt the weight of attention now. The curious glances from guests who'd noticed Dominic's focus on me. The speculative whispers from women who'd tried and failed to capture his interest. The calculating looks from men who were already wondering how to use this new information. Alessandro Marchesi approached as Dominic was pulled into a conversation with a major donor. His expression was rueful but understanding. I'm going to guess my chances just went from slim to none, he said quietly. I'm sorry, Alessandro. Tonight got complicated. Complicated is one word for it. He glanced at Dominic, who was tracking our conversation while ostensibly discussing foundation funding. For what it's worth, I think you're braver than most people. Dominic Ferrante doesn't do relationships. The fact that he's making an exception for you, he shook his head. That's either incredibly romantic or incredibly dangerous. Probably both. Probably. He smiled, genuine warmth in his expression. If it doesn't work out and you somehow survive it, call me. I'm a much safer choice. I don't want safe. I can see that. He kissed my cheek in farewell. Good luck, Elena. You're going to need it. He disappeared into the crowd, and Dominic materialized at my side within seconds. What did he say to you? That I'm brave, and possibly insane for getting involved with you. I looked up at him, seeing the possessive jealousy still simmering in his dark eyes. He's not wrong. No, he's not. Dominic's hand found mine, lacing our fingers together. Last chance to change your mind, Elena. After tonight, after you come home with me, this gets real. Complicated. There's no going back to how things were. I thought about my carefully ordered life, my safe apartment in Brooklyn, my professional boundaries, the 5 years I'd spent being invisible, protected by my own insignificance. Then I thought about the way Dominic had looked at me in that hallway. The raw honesty when he'd confessed he'd wanted me for years. The fear in his eyes when he'd realized I might be in danger because of his feelings. I don't want to go back, I said firmly. I want to go forward. With you. Whatever that means. His grip on my hand tightened. Then let's finish this gala. And then I'm taking you home. Home. Not his place. Not the penthouse. Home. As if I already belonged there. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of perfectly executed logistics. The auction raised $2.4 million for youth programs. The donors left satisfied and thoroughly networked. The catering was flawless, the music perfect, The entire event a stunning success that would be talked about for months. But I barely registered any of it. All I could focus on was Dominic's presence beside me, the weight of his attention, the knowledge that everything had changed and there was no going back. At 11:30, the last guests departed. The cleaning crew began breaking down the ballroom. I supervised the final details with practiced efficiency, ensuring nothing was missed, no detail overlooked. Dominic watched me work with an intensity that made my skin feel too tight. When I finally closed my laptop and declared everything complete, he was there immediately, his hand at my back. "Marco will drive us. Your assistant coordinator can handle the final venue walkthrough tomorrow morning. I should really... Elena." His voice dropped to that commanding tone that made arguments seem futile. "You're not going back to your apartment tonight. Not alone. Not unprotected. We're going to the penthouse. You're going to pack a bag remotely by telling your roommate what you need. And then you're going to sleep somewhere I know you're safe." The word sleep hung between us, loaded with implications. I'd agreed to move into his penthouse, to accept his protection. But what exactly did that mean? Separate suites like he'd mentioned? Or... Dominic. I stopped walking, forcing him to turn and face me. "What exactly are we doing here? Are we just protecting me? Or is this..." I gestured between us, unable to articulate the question. He stepped closer, backing me against the wall in the now empty corridor, caging me in with his body. "What do you want it to be?" "I want honesty. I want to know if tonight was just adrenaline and possession, or if this is actually..." He kissed me, swallowing the rest of my question. This kiss was different from the one on the terrace. Slower, deeper, devastatingly thorough. His hands cupped my face with surprising gentleness, his thumbs stroking my cheekbones as his mouth moved against mine with controlled intensity. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were blazing. "Does that feel like just adrenaline?" "No," I breathed. "I've wanted you for 5 years, Elena. 5 years of watching you move through my life, making everything better, being so goddamn perfect I couldn't stand it." His forehead rested against mine. "Tonight isn't just about protection. It's about claiming what I should have claimed years ago if I hadn't been so determined to keep you at a distance. And now I'm done with distance." His lips brushed against mine again, teasing. "Now I'm keeping you close. In my home. In my life. In my bed if you'll have me there." Heat flooded through me. "That's forward. I've wasted 5 years being careful. I'm done being careful." He pulled back to meet my eyes. "But Elena, I need you to be sure. Because once you're in my world completely, once everyone knows you're mine, the danger becomes real. The Castellanos are just the beginning. There will be others who see you as leverage, as a way to hurt me. And I will protect you with everything I have, but I can't guarantee your safety absolutely. No one can." I looked at this complicated, dangerous man who just confessed he'd wanted me for 5 years, who was offering me protection and partnership and something that looked dangerously like love, even if he hadn't said the word. "I'm sure," I said quietly, terrified, but sure. His smile was fierce and possessive. "Good, because I'm not letting you go now." Marco was waiting with the car, a sleek black SUV with tinted windows and security features I probably didn't want to know about. Dominic handed me into the back seat, then slid in beside me, immediately pulling me against his side. The drive to his penthouse in Tribeca took 20 minutes through late-night Manhattan traffic. Dominic spent the time on his phone, speaking in rapid Italian to someone about security protocols and schedule adjustments. I caught enough to understand he was arranging protection for me, personal security detail, background checks on everyone in my life, surveillance on my apartment building. "Is all that really necessary?" I asked when he ended the call. "Yes. The Castellanos now know you exist and that I care about you. Within 48 hours, they'll know everything about you, your routines, your vulnerabilities, your friends and family. We need to be 3 steps ahead of them." His arm tightened around me. "I'm not taking chances with your safety." The penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a luxury building with security that rivaled a government installation. We passed through 3 checkpoints before reaching the private elevator that opened directly into Dominic's home. The space was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, modern furniture in blacks and grays, artwork that was probably worth millions. But there were personal touches too, books that looked actually read, a vintage record player, photographs of people I assumed were family. "Your suite is this way." Dominic led me down a hallway, opening a door to reveal a spacious bedroom with its own bathroom and sitting area. "You'll have complete privacy." I'm on the other side of the penthouse if you need anything. I looked at the beautiful room, then back at him. And if I don't want privacy? His eyes darkened. Elena, you said you wanted me in your bed. I said I was sure. I stepped closer, looking up at him. Was that just talk? Or did you mean it? I meant it. His hand settled on my waist, pulling me against him. But you've had an intense night. Confessions and threats and your entire life changing. I don't want you making decisions you'll regret in the morning. I won't regret this. I slid my hands up his chest, feeling his heart thundering beneath my palms. Dominic, I've wanted you for 5 years too. I just convinced myself you'd never see me. Now you do, so stop being noble and show me exactly how much you want me. He growled low in his throat, the sound sending shivers through me. Then he was kissing me again, all pretense of control vanishing. His hands moved over my body, learning the curves the sapphire dress had been hiding, finding the zipper at my back and sliding it down with practiced ease. The dress pooled at my feet. I stood before him, in nothing but black lace and heels, and the way he looked at me like I was something precious and profane all at once made me feel powerful. 5 years, he murmured, his fingers tracing the edge of my bra. 5 years I've imagined this. Reality is so much better. Then stop imagining. I reached for his bow tie, untying it with shaking fingers. And start doing. He did. I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and Dominic's arm heavy across my waist. For a moment, I lay still, processing. The gala, the confession, the Castellanos, moving into the penthouse, and then everything that had happened in Dominic's bedroom, which I'd finally seen around 3 a.m. You're thinking too loud, Dominic murmured against my neck, his voice rough with sleep. I can feel it. I'm thinking that my entire life changed in about 6 hours. Regrets? I turned to face him, taking in his sleep-mussed hair and the surprising softness in his expression. Not even one. You? Only that I wasted 5 years we could have had. His hand cupped my face, thumb stroking my cheek. But we're here now. That's what matters. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I'd finally called my roommate around midnight to arrange having clothes delivered. The screen showed 17 missed calls and 32 text messages. That's a lot of notifications. Dominic's expression shifted, tension returning. Check them. If your roommate needs, they're not from my roommate. I scrolled through, my stomach sinking. They're from Caroline. And, oh no, oh God, what? I turned the phone so he could see the news alert Caroline had sent. The headline read, Ferrante Foundation Gala, Business or Pleasure? Manhattan's most eligible bachelor, spotted with mystery woman. Below it were photos, Dominic and me on the terrace, kissing, his hand possessive on my back as we'd returned to the ballroom. The way he'd watched me all night with unmistakable intensity. We'd been photographed. Not by official event photographers, but by guests with phones and social media accounts and apparently no sense of discretion. Well, Dominic said calmly, taking the phone and scrolling through the various articles and social media posts. That's one way to make our relationship public. You're not concerned? Dominic, this is going to be everywhere. Your business associates, your family, everyone is going to. Let them. He silenced my panic with a kiss. Elena, I meant what I said last night. I'm done hiding this. Done pretending I don't want you. If anything, this makes things simpler. How is this simpler? Because now everyone knows, including the Castellanos. His expression hardened. Which means they know that harming you would be a declaration of war. That's actually protective in its own way. I stared at him. You have a very twisted definition of protective. Welcome to my world. He pulled me closer, pressing a kiss to my forehead. But yes, this complicates things. Your life is going to change dramatically. The press will dig into your background. People will have opinions. My business associates will scrutinize you. It's going to be invasive and uncomfortable. Are you trying to scare me? I'm trying to prepare you. His eyes searched mine. This is your last exit, Elena. If you want out, say so now. I'll arrange protection until the attention dies down. Make sure you're safe, but let you return to your normal life. But if you stay, I stay. I covered his hand with mine. I told you last night I'm choosing this. Choosing you. Photos and press and danger and all of it. His smile was fierce and possessive. Then let's have breakfast. And then I'm going to introduce you to the rest of my world. What I didn't know then was that the rest of his world included family I hadn't known existed. business operations far more complex than I'd imagined, and enemies who were already planning their next move. The Castellanos had seen the photos too, and they were very interested in meeting Dominic Ferrante's new weakness. Breakfast was espresso and fresh pastries delivered by Dominic's housekeeper, Maria, who took one look at me in Dominic's shirt and smiled knowingly but said nothing. We ate on the terrace overlooking the city, and for a brief moment, everything felt almost normal. Then Dominic's phone started ringing. "It's going to be like this all day," he said apologetically, checking the screen. "My mother, my sister, my business partners, everyone's seen the photos, and everyone has opinions." "Your mother?" I set down my coffee cup carefully. "You've never mentioned family, because I keep them separate from business. Protected." He declined the call. But after last night's very public display, that separation just evaporated. "My mother will want to meet you. Today, probably. She's persistent. Should I be nervous? Terrified?" But he smiled as he said it. "Teresa Ferrante doesn't do subtle. She's going to interrogate you, judge you, and probably offer unsolicited opinions about our relationship. But if she likes you, and she will, she'll also protect you with the same ferocity I do." The phone rang again. This time he answered. "Mama, buongiorno." He listened for a moment, his expression shifting through amusement, exasperation, and resignation. "Yes, I saw the photos. No, it's not a publicity stunt. Because I care about her, that's why." He met my eyes across the table. "Yes, really care. Mama, I'm 36 years old. I don't need fine. 2:00. We'll be there." He ended the call and sighed. "Sunday dinner has been moved to Sunday lunch, at her house in Brooklyn Heights. She wants to meet you immediately." "That's soon. That's Teresa." He reached across the table, taking my hand. "Elena, my family is going to be overwhelming. My mother will ask inappropriate questions. My sister Gianna will probably threaten you if she thinks you'll hurt me. My uncle Victor will try to determine if you're after my money, and my cousin Anthony will make terrible jokes to break the tension." Sounds delightful. It's actually worse than I'm describing. His thumb stroked across my knuckles. "But they're also loyal, protective, and once they accept you as mine, they'll treat you like family. Which means defending you against anyone who threatens you." "Including the Castellanos?" His expression hardened. "Especially the Castellanos. Which reminds me, Marco will be your personal security starting today. He's trained, competent, and under strict orders to stay within 50 feet of you at all times when you're not with me." "Dominic, that's excessive." "It's necessary." He stood, pulling me to my feet and into his arms. "Last night changed everything. The Castellanos know you matter to me. They'll be watching, waiting for an opportunity. I need you protected." I wanted to argue, to insist I could take care of myself. But the intensity in his eyes, the barely concealed fear beneath his controlled exterior, stopped me. This wasn't about controlling me. This was about a man terrified of losing something he'd finally allowed himself to want. "Okay," I said quietly. "Marco can shadow me. But Dominic, I'm not going to stop living my life. I still have work. The foundation has 3 events scheduled in the next 2 months that need coordination. You'll coordinate them, with security present." He kissed my forehead. "I'm not trying to cage you, Elena. I'm trying to keep you alive." The rest of the morning passed in a blur of preparation. My roommate delivered 3 suitcases of my belongings, her eyes wide as she took in the penthouse. Dominic spent 2 hours on calls, managing both legitimate business and the less legitimate operations I was only beginning to understand. Marco arrived at noon, 6'4", former Special Forces, with the kind of presence that made people instinctively step aside. He was polite but distant, treating me with professional courtesy, while making it clear his loyalty was to Dominic first. "Miss Chen." He nodded respectfully. "I'll be your primary security. My job is to keep you safe without interfering in your daily life. You'll barely notice I'm there." That seemed unlikely given his imposing size, but I appreciated the sentiment. At 1:30, Dominic emerged from his home office looking slightly stressed. "Ready to meet the family?" "No. But let's do it anyway." His smile was quick and genuine. "That's the spirit." The drive to Brooklyn Heights took 40 minutes through Sunday traffic. Dominic held my hand the entire way, occasionally squeezing when he sensed my nervousness building. Marco followed in a second vehicle with another security team member. Teresa Ferrante's house was a beautiful brownstone on a tree-lined street that screamed old money and established family. Before we'd even reached the front door, it flew open, and a petite woman in her 60s appeared, all elegant gray hair and sharp dark eyes that immediately fixed on me with laser focus. "Dominic!" She pulled him into a fierce hug, then turned that intense gaze on me. And this must be Elena, the woman who finally captured my son's attention after years of him pretending he didn't need anyone. "Mama, hush. I'm talking to your girlfriend." She took both my hands, studying my face with unsettling thoroughness. "You're pretty, but that's not why he chose you. Beautiful women throw themselves at Dominic constantly. No, there's something else. Intelligence in your eyes. Strength. You're not intimidated by him. I've worked for him for 5 years, Mrs. Ferrante. I've seen him at his most demanding. And you stayed." She smiled, genuine warmth breaking through the intensity. "That tells me everything I need to know. Come inside. Everyone's dying to meet you." The house was warm and lived in, filled with family photos and the smell of Sunday sauce simmering. In the dining room, I was immediately surrounded by Ferrantes. Gianna, Dominic's younger sister, 28 and stunning with her dark hair and sharp features, she looked me over with protective skepticism. "So you're the event coordinator? Dominic says you're brilliant at your job." "I try to be." "She is," Dominic interjected, his hand settling possessively at my back. "Elena's made the Foundation Gala the most successful fundraiser in the city." Uncle Victor, a silver-haired man in his 70s with eyes that missed nothing, studied me with the same calculating assessment Vincent Castellano had used. "What are your intentions toward my nephew, Miss Chen?" "Uncle Vic," Dominic started. "It's okay." I met Victor's gaze steadily. "My intentions are to be honest with him, to support him, and to not get killed by his enemies." In that order. Silence. Then Victor laughed, a booming sound that filled the room. "I like her. She's got spine. About time you found someone who doesn't just tell you what you want to hear." Cousin Anthony, close to my age with an easy smile and mischievous eyes, raised his wine glass. "Welcome to the family, Elena. Fair warning, we're loud, we're opinionated, and we will absolutely embarrass Dominic at every opportunity. It's our job." "I look forward to it," I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. Lunch was chaotic and wonderful. 7 different conversations happening simultaneously, food passed family style, Teresa presiding over everything with benevolent authority. They argued about politics and business, told embarrassing stories about Dominic's childhood, and somehow made me feel included despite being the obvious outsider. It was during dessert that Teresa finally addressed the elephant in the room. "I saw the photos from last night. Very romantic, very public." She looked between Dominic and me, but also very dangerous. "I assume you've considered what this means? The attention it brings? The targets it paints?" "We've discussed it, Mama." "And the Castellanos?" "Victor tells me they were at the gala, that they noticed Elena." The room went quiet. Everyone suddenly very interested in their cannoli. "They noticed," Dominic confirmed, his jaw tightening. "Which is why Elena's moved into the penthouse and has personal security." "Smart." Teresa's expression hardened in a way that reminded me she'd been married to a man who'd built an empire through strategic violence. "The Castellanos are ambitious. Stupid, but ambitious. They'll see this as an opportunity. Let them try." Dominic's hand found mine under the table, gripping tight. "I'm prepared for whatever they attempt." "Are you?" Uncle Victor leaned forward. "Because Vincent Castellano plays dirty, Dominic. He doesn't have your father's sense of honor. If he thinks he can use the girl to hurt you, her name is Elena." Dominic's voice went cold. "And anyone who tries to use her against me will discover exactly how much of my father's ruthlessness I inherited." The temperature in the room dropped several degrees. I'd seen Dominic commanding in business settings, but this was different. This was the dangerous man beneath the tailored suits, the one who'd built his empire on foundations his father had laid with blood and strategic violence. "Good." Victor nodded approvingly. "Just making sure you understand what's at stake. The girl Elena, she seems strong, but she's not from our world. The Castellanos will exploit that, which is why I need family support." Dominic looked around the table. "Elena is mine. That makes her family. I need everyone to understand that protecting her is protecting me." "Of course." Teresa stood, moving to place her hands on my shoulders from behind. "Elena is family now, which means the Ferrantes protect her. All of us." Gianna raised her wine glass. "To Elena. May she survive dating our insane brother." "To Elena," the others echoed, and I felt the weight of acceptance settle over me. These people barely knew me, but Dominic's claim had made me theirs. For better or worse, I was now part of this complicated, dangerous, fiercely loyal family. After lunch, as Dominic was pulled into a discussion with Uncle Victor about shipping contracts, Teresa guided me to the kitchen under the pretense of helping with dishes. "You love him," she said quietly, handing me a dish towel. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. "Yes." "And you understand what that means? The danger? The violence that sometimes comes with his business? The fact that you'll always be wondering which parts of his empire are legitimate and which aren't? I've worked for him for 5 years, Mrs. Ferrante. I'm not naive about what Dominic does. Knowing intellectually and living with it are very different things." She dried a plate with practiced efficiency. "My husband built the Ferrante empire from nothing. I watched him make terrible choices in the name of protecting our family. I lied awake nights wondering if he'd come home, or if I'd get a call from the hospital, or the morgue. Did you ever regret it, marrying him? Every single day." She smiled, but her eyes were sad, and not once. Love is complicated that way. Especially when you love dangerous men. How did you handle it? By being stronger than they expected. By building my own life, my own purposes, so I wasn't just waiting for him to come home. By making sure our children knew both sides of their father, the man who would kill to protect them, and the man who read them bedtime stories. She turned to face me fully. "Elena, if you're going to survive loving Dominic, you need to be more than his girlfriend. You need to be his partner, his equal. Someone he respects enough to listen to when his instincts tell him to handle everything with violence." "I don't know if I can do that." "You've already started." She squeezed my hand. "You negotiated terms with him last night. That takes courage most people don't have. Just don't lose that strength when things get difficult. And they will get difficult." Before I could respond, Gianna appeared in the doorway. "Mama, Dominic needs you. Uncle Victor's getting worked up about the Castellano situation." Teresa sighed. "Men. They always think violence is the answer." She patted my cheek. "Welcome to the family, Elena. Try to keep my son from doing anything too stupid." She left, and Gianna lingered, studying me with the same intensity her mother had used. "So, you and Dominic." "Me and Dominic," I confirmed. "I've never seen him like this. Protective? Yes, he's always been protective of family, but this is different, more intense." She crossed her arms. "If you hurt him, I won't." "You can't promise that. People hurt each other, even when they don't mean to." Her expression softened slightly. "But I think you'll try not to." Which is more than I can say for the socialites who've been throwing themselves at him for years. I'm not trying to compete with them. I know. That's why you've already won. She moved closer, her voice dropping. "Elena, my brother is brilliant and dangerous and completely terrifying when he wants to be, but he's also lonely. He's spent his entire adult life building walls to protect himself. You somehow got through those walls. That makes you either very brave or very stupid. Probably both." She laughed. "Yeah, probably. Look, I'm going to be honest, I don't know if this is going to work. The Castellanos are escalating. Dominic's world is violent, and you're normal. But if anyone has a chance of surviving it, it's someone strong enough to negotiate with Dominic Ferrante and win. I didn't win. We compromised. Same thing when it comes to my brother." She headed for the door, then paused. "One more thing. If the Castellanos come for you, don't try to be brave. Scream, fight, make noise. Dominic has people everywhere. But they can't protect you if they don't know you're in danger." The casual way she discussed kidnapping attempts made my blood run cold. Has this happened before? Women being targeted because of Dominic? No, because Dominic never let anyone matter enough to be a target. You're the first. Her smile was sympathetic. Lucky you. We returned to Brooklyn as the sun was setting, the city painted in golds and purples. Dominic was quiet during the drive, his hand holding mine, his thumb tracing absent patterns on my palm. "They loved you," he said finally. "My mother especially. She doesn't warm up to people easily. She's terrifying and wonderful. That's Teresa." He pulled me closer. "She also probably gave you dire warnings about the dangers of being with me." "She did. Your sister too. And I'm still here." I looked up at him. "Dominic, I know this is dangerous. I know the Castellanos are a threat. I know your world isn't safe. But I also know that I'd rather face it with you than hide from it alone." He kissed me then, deep and possessive, his hand tangling in my hair. When we broke apart, his eyes were blazing. "You're going to ruin me, Elena Chen. Make me soft. Make me care about things beyond power and control." "Good. You could use some ruining." His laugh was quiet but genuine. Probably true. We spent the evening in comfortable domesticity. I worked on foundation event planning while Dominic reviewed contracts, both of us in his home office, feet tangled together under the desk. It felt normal, ordinary, like we'd been doing this for years instead of days. It was almost midnight when Dominic's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his expression went cold. "It's Marco," he answered immediately. "What happened?" I watched his face as he listened, seeing fury and fear war across his features. When he ended the call, his hand was shaking slightly. "What is it?" "Your apartment in Brooklyn. Someone broke in tonight, tore the place apart, left a message on the wall." His eyes met mine, dark with barely controlled rage. It said, "She's not safe anywhere." Ice flooded my veins. "The Castellanos?" "Almost certainly. They're sending a message that my protection isn't enough, that they can reach you whenever they want." He stood, pacing like a caged predator. "Your roommate wasn't home?" "Thank God. But Elena, this is exactly what I was afraid of. They're escalating faster than I expected." "What do we do?" "I handle it." The words came out flat and absolutely final. "I make it clear that touching you means war, that any move against you will be met with complete retaliation." "Dominic." "No." He turned to face me, and the man looking back was someone I'd only glimpsed before the dangerous head of a criminal empire, someone capable of violence without hesitation. "Elena, they broke into your home, left a threat. This isn't business anymore. This is personal. And I handle personal threats permanently." Fear clawed at my throat, not of Dominic, but of what he might do. "You can't just start a war because someone broke into my apartment." "I absolutely can." He moved toward me, cupping my face with surprising gentleness despite the fury in his eyes. "You're mine. That makes you untouchable. The Castellanos need to learn that lesson before they actually hurt you. And how many people die while you teach them that lesson?" The question stopped him cold. He stared at me, conflict clear in his expression. "This is my world," he said quietly. "Violence answered with violence. Threats met with retaliation. If I don't respond decisively, if I show any weakness, every enemy I have will see you as an easy target. Then don't show weakness. Show strategy." I stood, moving to stand before him. "Dominic, your mother told me to be your partner, not just your girlfriend. So I'm telling you, starting a war might protect me short-term, but it also paints an even bigger target on my back. Every enemy you make becomes another threat. So what do you suggest?" His voice carried an edge, but he was listening. "I suggest we be smarter than them. The Castellanos want to provoke you into making a mistake, into acting rashly. Don't give them that satisfaction." I placed my hands on his chest, feeling his heart racing beneath my palms. "Let's think this through strategically. Find leverage. Make the cost of threatening me higher than any potential gain." He was silent for a long moment, his eyes searching mine. Then he pulled me into his arms, holding me tight enough that I could barely breathe. "You're right," he murmured against my hair. "God help me, you're right. I was about to do exactly what they wanted, react with pure violence instead of strategy. That's what I'm here for, to stop you from being stupid." His laugh rumbled through his chest into mine. "Is that your official job description now? Dominic Ferrante's impulse control? Someone has to do it." He pulled back enough to look at me, his expression serious again. "But Elena, strategy takes time, and in the meantime, the Castellanos know where you used to live. They've proven they can reach your old life. We need to tighten security even more." "Meaning?" "Meaning you don't go anywhere without Marco or me. Meaning we do background checks on everyone in your life, friends, family, colleagues. Meaning your freedom gets significantly restricted until we neutralize this threat." I wanted to argue, to insist that was excessive. But the fear in his eyes, the barely concealed terror that something might happen to me, stopped me. "Okay," I said quietly. "But Dominic, I can't live in a cage forever. We need a timeline, a plan to end this permanently." "We will." He kissed my forehead. "I promise you, we will. But first, we keep you alive long enough to execute that plan." The next morning brought more complications. I woke to find Dominic already gone, a note on his pillow saying he had an early meeting with Uncle Victor and would be back by noon. Marco was stationed outside the penthouse door when I emerged, his expression professionally neutral. "Morning, Miss Chen. Mr. Ferrante asked me to remind you that you have a foundation meeting at 10. I'll drive you. I can take a cab. With respect, miss, that's not happening. Not after last night. I sighed but didn't argue. The foundation offices were in Midtown, occupying 3 floors of a building Dominic owned. I'd been coordinating events remotely for years, but this morning I needed to meet with the full team about the upcoming winter benefit. The meeting went smoothly despite Marco's imposing presence in the corner. My team was professional enough not to ask questions about my sudden security detail, though I caught curious glances and knew the gossip was already spreading. It was when we broke for lunch that everything went wrong. I was in my office, reviewing catering proposals, when my assistant knocked hesitantly. "Miss Chen? There's someone here to see you. He says it's urgent." "Who?" "Marco Castellano." My blood turned to ice. Vincent Castellano's son, here in the foundation offices. This was a power play, a deliberate provocation. "Tell him I'm not available." I tried. "He says he'll wait as long as necessary. And Miss Chen, he has 2 men with him. Security is concerned, but not sure if they should intervene since he hasn't actually done anything threatening." I thought quickly. Marco, my Marco. Dominic's security was getting coffee from the break room. I could call him back, could refuse to see the Castellanos. But that would show fear, would give them exactly the reaction they wanted. Or I could face them, on my territory, surrounded by witnesses, where they couldn't actually do anything without causing a scene that would benefit Dominic politically. "I'll see him. But tell Marco my security detail where I am, and leave my office door open." My assistant nodded, clearly nervous but trusting my judgment. Marco Castellano entered my office like he owned it, all arrogant confidence and predatory interest. Up close, he was handsome in a cruel way, with his father's calculating eyes and a smile that never reached them. "Miss Chen, how lovely to finally meet you properly. Mr. Castellano, I'm surprised you're here. I didn't think the foundation was of interest to your family." "Oh, the foundation isn't what interests me." He settled into the chair across from my desk uninvited. "You are Dominic Ferrante's mysterious new girlfriend, the woman who managed to capture the attention of Manhattan's most eligible bachelor. I'm sure you didn't come here to discuss my relationship." "No. I came to deliver a message." His smile widened. "My father wanted me to apologize for the unfortunate incident at your apartment last night. A misunderstanding, really. Some of our associates got overzealous." Rage flooded through me, hot and sharp. "Overzealous? You call breaking into someone's home and leaving threatening messages overzealous? Mistakes happen. But Miss Chen Elena, may I call you Elena? I'm here to assure you it won't happen again. Provided, of course, that Dominic is reasonable about our business negotiations." There it was. The real message. They were using the break-in as leverage, trying to force Dominic into concessions by threatening me. I stood slowly, planting my hands on my desk, and channeled every ounce of Dominic's cold authority I'd absorbed over 5 years. "Mr. Castellano, let me be very clear. I am not a negotiating chip. I am not leverage. And any future attempts to use me against Dominic will be met with consequences you won't enjoy." I smiled without warmth. "You think breaking into my apartment was sending a message? You have no idea what message Dominic is preparing to send back." Marco's expression darkened. "That sounds like a threat." "It's a fact. You've made me personal to this conflict. That was a strategic error." I moved around the desk, putting myself between him and the door in a show of confidence I didn't entirely feel. "Now I suggest you leave before my security detail returns and things get uncomfortable." "Your security detail?" He laughed. "You mean the one man Dominic assigned to watch you? What's he going to do against 3 of us?" "I don't know. Let's find out." My Marco appeared in the doorway, his massive frame filling the space, his expression absolutely lethal as he took in the scene. Behind him, I saw 2 more security personnel, both armed. "Miss Chen," Marco's voice was dangerously soft. "Is there a problem?" Mr. Castellano was just leaving. Marco Castellano looked between my security team and me, calculation clear in his eyes. Then he smiled, standing slowly. "Of course, I've delivered my message. It was lovely meeting you, Elena. I'm sure we'll see each other again soon." "I'm sure we won't." He left with his men, and the moment they were gone, my knees went weak. I sank into my chair, adrenaline making my hands shake. "Miss Chen." Marco was on his phone immediately. "Mr. Ferrante needs to know about this. The Castellanos just escalated significantly. I handled it. You handled it perfectly, but this changes things. They came to your workplace. That's a direct threat, a violation of neutral territory." He was already dialing. "Mr. Ferrante is going to be furious. That was an understatement. Dominic arrived at my office within 20 minutes, moving through the space with barely contained violence. His security team cleared the floor, and suddenly we were alone in my office with the door closed. You met with him. His voice was dangerously quiet. Marco Castellano came here, and you met with him, instead of calling me immediately. He was in the foundation offices with witnesses. It was safer to handle it here than let him think I was afraid. I don't care about tactics. The words exploded out of him. Elena, he could have hurt you, could have taken you. Do you understand what could have happened? He came to deliver a message, not to kidnap me in broad daylight from a building full of people. You don't know that. Dominic's hands gripped my shoulders, his eyes blazing with fear disguised as fury. You don't know what these people are capable of, what they'll do to get leverage. I need you to understand that you're not invincible, that you can't just... I'm not the one who needs that lesson, I said quietly, meeting his eyes. Dominic, you're spiraling. The Castellanos are trying to provoke you into making mistakes, and it's working. He stared at me, breathing hard, conflict clear on his face. Then he pulled me into his arms, holding me so tight I could barely breathe. I can't lose you, he whispered against my hair. Elena, I can't. Not now. Not after I finally... He cut himself off, his grip tightening. You won't lose me. I wrapped my arms around him, feeling him trembling with suppressed emotion. But Dominic, we need to end this. Permanently. What's the plan? He pulled back, his expression shifting from fear to cold calculation. The plan is I remind the Castellanos why my father owned this city, and why I've maintained that control. I make the cost of threatening you so high that they'll never consider it again. How? His smile was sharp and absolutely ruthless. By finding leverage that destroys them if they move against you. By making sure every ally they have understands that protecting you is protecting their own interests. By being smarter and more ruthless than they could imagine. He cupped my face. You wanted strategy instead of violence? I'll give you strategy. But Elena, it's going to get messy. The Castellanos aren't going to back down easily. Then we make them. I rose on my toes, kissing him softly. Together, like partners. Like partners, he agreed. What I didn't know then was that the Castellanos had already made their next move. That while Dominic was planning strategy, they were planning violence. That the message at my apartment and Marco's visit to my office had been distractions while they positioned themselves for something far worse. And that within 48 hours, I'd be facing a choice that would test everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and how far I was willing to go to protect the dangerous man I'd fallen for. The war was just beginning. The attack came on Wednesday evening. I was leaving the foundation offices with Marco, heading to the car, when 3 SUVs blocked our path. Vincent Castellano himself stepped out, flanked by 8 men. Miss Chen, we need to talk about Dominic's unreasonable behavior. Marco moved in front of me, hand going to his weapon. But we were outnumbered, outgunned, and Vincent knew it. One call, I said steadily, pulling out my phone. One call and Dominic burns your entire operation to the ground. Make the call, Vincent smiled. I'm counting on it. You see, this isn't about taking you, Elena. It's about proving a point. That Dominic cares more about you than he does about strategic thinking. That love makes him weak. My phone was already ringing. Dominic answered on the first ring. Elena, the Castellanos are here. Your offices. Vincent wants to talk. I kept my voice steady despite my racing heart. He says this is about proving you're weak. Silence. Then Dominic's voice came through, cold as death. Put him on speaker. I did. Vincent leaned close, his smile widening. Dominic, I have a proposal. You give me Red Hook, completely and permanently, or I make Elena disappear. Not kill, that would be too easy. Just disappear. You'd spend the rest of your life wondering if she's alive, if she's suffering, if you could have saved her. Touch her, and I'll destroy 3 generations of Castellanos. Dominic's voice was absolutely lethal. Your father, you, your son, everyone. I'll erase your family from history. But you'd lose her in the process. Is territory worth that? Vincent's hand settled on my shoulder, and I fought not to flinch. Choose, Dominic. Your empire or your woman. You have 10 seconds. I heard Dominic's sharp intake of breath. Heard the moment his control cracked. Elena, he said quietly. I love you. I need you to know that before. Dominic, don't. I cut him off, realization flooding through me. Don't you dare give them Red Hook. Don't you dare choose me over everything you've built. I choose you. Every time. His voice broke. Vincent, you can have Red Hook. Just let her go. No. I grabbed the phone. Dominic Ferrante, you listen to me. I didn't fall in love with a man who surrenders. I fell in love with someone who's smarter than his enemies. So stop reacting and start thinking. Silence. Then Dominic laughed, the sound sharp and slightly unhinged. She's right. God, she's right. His voice changed, went cold and calculating. Vincent, you made a mistake. You assumed I'd react emotionally, but Elena just reminded me I'm better than that. So here's what's actually going to happen. Sirens erupted around us. Police cars, federal vehicles, flooding the street from every direction. You're going to surrender to the FBI agents currently surrounding you, Dominic continued, because while you were busy threatening Elena, Uncle Victor was delivering evidence of your trafficking operations to federal prosecutors. Evidence we've been collecting for months. You're done, Vincent. Completely. Vincent's face went white. You're bluffing. Am I? Check your phone. Your accounts are frozen. Your warehouses are being raided as we speak. Your son is already in custody. Dominic's voice carried savage satisfaction. You wanted to prove love makes me weak? Instead, you proved you underestimate the woman I love. She kept you talking long enough for us to execute the plan we'd been preparing since you first threatened her. FBI agents moved in, weapons drawn. Vincent's men surrendered without fight, and suddenly I was being ushered to safety by federal agents who clearly knew exactly who Dominic Ferrante was. Marco stayed close, his expression almost approving. Well played, Miss Chen. Very well played. 20 minutes later, I was in Dominic's penthouse, wrapped in his arms while he trembled against me. I thought I'd lost you, he whispered. For 10 seconds I thought, but you didn't. We won. I pulled back to meet his eyes. Together, like partners, he agreed, then kissed me with desperate relief. Later, as we lay tangled together, processing what had happened, Dominic explained the full plan. How Uncle Victor had been building a case against the Castellanos for months. How they'd used the threats against me to provoke Vincent into making mistakes. How my confrontation with Marco had been recorded, giving them additional evidence. You used me as bait, I said, though I wasn't angry. Impressed, actually. I used their obsession with you against them. There's a difference. He traced my jawline. Elena, I meant what I said. I would have given them Red Hook, would have given them everything to keep you safe. I know. But I also knew you had a better plan if I just gave you time to execute it. I kissed him softly. That's what partners do. Trust each other to be brilliant. 6 months later, I stood in the same Grand Bellamy ballroom where everything had changed, coordinating another Ferrante Foundation gala. But this time, Dominic stood beside me, his hand at my back, making no effort to hide our relationship. The Castellanos were gone, Vincent in federal prison, his organization dismantled. The threats had ended, and somehow, impossibly, we'd survived. Ready for the rest of our lives? Dominic murmured against my ear. I looked up at the man who'd seen me when I was invisible, who'd fought for me, who'd let me fight beside him. With you, always. He kissed me in front of 300 witnesses, and this time, I didn't care who was watching, because I wasn't invisible anymore. I was exactly where I belonged. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.